Embroidery in India includes dozens of regional embroidery styles that vary by region on the varied Indian clothing styles. Designs in Indian embroidery are formed on the basis of the texture and the design of the fabric and the stitch. The dot and the alternate dot, the circle, the square, the triangle, and permutations and combinations of these constitute the design. Photo gallery. AARI work involves a hook plied from the top but fed by silk thread from below with the material spread out on a frame. This movement creates loops, and repeats of these lead to a line of chain stitch. The fabric is stretched on a frame and stitching is done with a long needle ending with a hook such as a crewel, tambour or loonville work. The other hand feeds the thread from the underside, and the hook brings it up, making a chain stitch. But it is much quicker than chain stitch done in the usual way. Looks like machine-made and can also be embellished with sequins and beads, which are kept on the right side, and the needle goes inside the holes before plunging below, thus securing them to the fabric. AARI embroidery is practiced in various regions such as in Kashmir and Kutch. Banjara embroidery, practiced by the Lambada Gypsy tribes of Andhra Pradesh. Banjara embroidery is a mix of applique with mirrors and beadwork. Bright red, yellow, black and white colored cloth is laid in bands and joined with a white crisscross stitch. The Banjaras of Madhya Pradesh, who are found in the districts of Malwa and Nima, have their own style of embroidery where designs are created according to the weave of the cloth, and the textured effect is achieved by varying colors and stitches of the geometric patterns and designs. Motifs are generally highlighted by cross-stitch. Baniya Bharat. The Baniya Bharat embroidery originates in Gujarat and is practiced mainly by the Loharana community. It is done with silk floss and it is famous for its vibrancy and richness in color palettes and amp design patterns, which include shisha work. Bagh and Fulkari embroidery of the Punjab region has influenced Bharat embroidery in its use of geometrical motifs and stitchery. Chamba Rumal. This embroidery flourished in the princely hill states of Kangra, Chamba, Basholi, and other neighboring provinces. Chamba region has highly skilled craftsmen. Chokana Chikankari. The present form of Chikan work is associated with the city of Lucknow in Uttar Pradesh. Chikan embroidery on silk is Lucknow's own innovation. The other Chikan styles are that of Calcutta and Dhaka. However, characteristic forms of stitch were developed in Lucknow, Fanda and Murree. Chikan embroidery is believed to have been introduced by Nur Jahan, the wife of Jahangir. Chikan embroidery involves the use of white thread on white muslin, fine cotton, or voile, fine almost sheer fabrics, which showcases shadow work embroidery the best. Other colors can also be used. The artisans usually create individual motifs or beauties of animals and flowers. The designs are first printed onto the fabric not with chalk, but with a mixture of glue and indigo. At least 40 different stitches are documented, of which about 30 are still practiced today and include flat, raised and embossed stitch, and the open trellis-like jali work. Some of the stitches that are used in Chikankari work include Typechi, Pekni, Pashni, Bakia, Giti, Jangira, Murree, Fanda, Jarlas, etc. In English, chain stitch, buttonhole stitch, French knots and running stitch, shadow work. Another is the Katau, Gota. It is a form of applique in gold thread, used for women's formal attire. Small pieces of zari ribbon are applied onto the fabric with the edges sewn down to create elaborate patterns. Lengths of wider golden ribbons are stitched on the edges of the fabric to create an effect of gold zari work. Kandela in Shekhawati is famous for its manufacture. The Muslim community uses kanari or edging, a fringed border decoration. Gota Kanari practiced mainly in Jaipur, utilizing fine shapes of bird, animals, human figures which are cut and sewn onto the material. Kantha. Naksha is embroidery on many layers of cloth with running stitch. It is also known as Dorika, which mean the designs, motifs are equally visible in both sides. There is no right or wrong side, so both sides are usable. Traditionally, worn-out clothes and saris were piled together and stitched into quilts. Rural Bengali women still do this with cotton saris, the embroidery thread being taken from the sari border. It started as a method of making quilts, but the same type of embroidery can also be found on saris, salwar suits, stoles, napkins, etc. Themes include human beings, animals, flowers, geometric designs, and mythological figures. Different types include Sujani Kantha, Durjani Kantha, Lep Kantha, Arkalata Kantha, Rumal Kantha, and Oaar Kantha. Kachobi. It is a raised zari metallic thread embroidery created by sewing flat stitches on cotton padding. This technique is commonly used for bridal and formal costumes as well as for velvet coverings, tent hangings, curtains and the coverings of animal carts and temple chariots. Kasuti or Kasaldi. Kasuti comes from the state of Karnataka, but also used elsewhere, as in Kashipuram saris. Kasuti is done with single thread and involves counting of each thread on the cloth. The patterns are stitched without knots, so that both sides of the cloth look alike. Stitches like Ganti, Murgi, Nage and Menth form intricate patterns like Gopura, chariot, palanquin, lamps and conch shells, as well as peacocks and elephants, in fixed designs and patterns. Kathi. Kathi embroidery was introduced by Kathi, the cattle breeders, who were wanderers. This technique combines chain stitch, applique work and mirror-like insertions. Kutch or Aravarit or. The best known of the Kutch embroidery techniques is Aravarit, named after the hooked needle which forms the chain stitch. It is also known as Mochavarit, as it used to be done by Mochas. Kutchi Barit, Sindhi stitch, a variation of Kutch work. This geometric embroidery starts with a foundation framework of herringbone stitch or cretan stitch, and then this framework is completely filled with interlacing. It is said that this technique originated in faraway land of Armenia and found its way to Gujarat by traveling nomads. Sindhi stitch or Maltese cross stitch is also similar, but the innovation of the Kutchi women have taken it beyond the traditional designs. Kutch work. Kashmiri embroidery. Kashmiri Kashida Kashmiri embroidery is used for firans and namdars as well as stoles. It draws inspiration from nature. Birds, blossoms and flowers, creepers, china leaves, gobi, mangoes, lotus, and trees are the most common themes. The entire pattern is made with 1 or 2 embroidery stitches, and mainly chain stitch on a base of silk, wool and cotton. The color is usually white, off-white to cream, but nowadays one can find stoles and salwar kameez sets in many other colors such as brown, deep blue, sky blue, maroon and rani pink. Kashida is primarily done on canvas with crystal threads, but Kashida also employs pashmina and leather threads. Apart from clothes, it's found on home furnishings like bedspreads, sofa and floor cushions, and pillow covers. The base cloth, whether wool or cotton, is generally white or cream or a similar shade. Pastel colors are also often used. The craftsmen use shades that blend with the background. Thread colors are inspired by local flowers. Only 1 or 2 stitches are employed on one fabric. Kashmiri embroidery is known for the skilled execution of a single stitch, which is often called the Kashmiri stitch, and which may comprise the chain stitch, the satin stitch, the slanted dance stitch, the stem stitch, and the herringbone stitch. Sometimes the dory stitches are used, but not more than 1 or 2 at a time. Kashmiri stitches. The stitches include Sosni, Zalakdozi and Vartichakan. Other styles include Dorika, in which the motif appears on both sides of the shawl, with each side having a different color. Papier-mâché, Aari. Embroidery, Shalda, Chinakam. Samovar is a very typical and popular design used in Kashmiri embroidery. The samovar pattern is then filled up with intricate flowers and leaves and twigs. Kashir jal, which implies fine network of embroidery, particularly on the neckline and sleeves of a dress material. Further styles include Nala jal, which involves embroidery particularly on the neckline and chest yoke. Nala means neck in the Koshur dialect of Kashmiri language. Jama is a very dense embroidery covering the whole base fabric with a thick spread of vine, creepers and flowers, bidam and heart shapes. A variation of this form is neem jama, where neem means demi, a half, because the embroidery is less dense, allowing a view of the fabric underneath, and jal consisting of belbuti, a fine and sparse net of vine, creepers and flowers. Variation of this form is neem jal, where again the work is less dense. Mukesh. Small rectangular pieces of metal are squeezed shut around some threads of the fabric. Mukesh work includes women making shiny stitches amid chikan embroidery using a needle and long, thin strips of metal. Phulpati Karkam. Flower embroidery of Uttar Pradesh, especially in Aligarh. Punjabi embroidery. Fulkari is the most famous rural embroidery tradition of Punjab, mentioned in the Punjabi folklore of Aurangzeb by Waris Shah. Its present form and popularity goes back to 15th century, during Maharaja Ranjit Singh's reign. Fulkari also means headscarf, and it comes from the 19th century tradition of carrying an adani or a headscarf with flower patterns. Its distinctive property is that the base is a dull hand-spun akadi cloth with bright-colored threads that cover it completely, leaving no gaps. It uses a darn stitch done from the wrong side of the fabric using darning needles, one thread at a time, leaving a long stitch below to form the basic pattern. Famous for Fulkari are the cities of Amritsar, Jalandhar, Ambala, Ludhiana, Nabha, Jind, Faridkot, and Kapurthala. Other cities include Gurgaon, Karnal, Hisar, Rohtak and Delhi. Bagh is an offshoot of Fulkari and almost always follows a geometric pattern, with green as its basic color. Other styles. The embroidery styles of the Punjab region include Kalabatun embroidery using thinned wires. Kalabatun silk involves using gold wires on orange-colored and red silk. Kalabatun saft involves using silver wires on white material. There are two kinds of gold embroidery, one of a solid and rich kind called Khob and the other called Tilikara Karchakan, utilizing gold thread. The former is used for carpets and saddle cloths, whereas the latter is used for dresses. The Punjab region also uses Mukesh embroidery, Mukesh Bati Hui, twisted tinsel, Mukesh Gotru, flattened gold wire for embroidery of a heavy kind, and waved Mukesh, made by crimping Mukesh bataway with iron tongs. Ludhiana and Amritsar are known for embroidery using white, silver and gold threads on clothes such as chogas and waistcoats. Patchwork is also a tradition of the region. Pikwai, colorful embroidered cloth hangings made in Nathdwara, Rajasthan. The central themes focus on Lord Krishna. Pipli. Applique Pipli work originates from the Pipli village in Odisha and some parts of Gujarat. It is based on patchwork. Brightly colored and patterned fabric pieces are sewn together on a plain background. Designs include human forms, animals and vehicles. Originally this technique was used for parasols, canopies and pillars for the Rath Yatra. Nowadays different home decor items can be found, such as lampshades, garden umbrellas and bed covers. Ribari. This embroidery style is made by the Ribari or Rewari community of Rajasthan and Gujarat. This very colorful embroidery style, using stark contrast, was traditionally used only for garments, but now it can be found on bags, accessories, home furnishings, etc. Mirrors of all shapes and sizes are incorporated in the embroidery, as a result of the belief that mirrors protect from evil spirits. Designs include not only flowers and fruit and animals such as parrots and elephants, but also temples, women carrying pots, and the ubiquitous mango shape. Shamilami, a combination of weaving and embroidery, and was once a high-status symbol. Shisha mirrorwork. This ornamentation method originated in Persia during 13th century and involves little pieces of mirror in various sizes which are encased in the decoration of the fabric, first by interlacing threads and then with buttonhole stitch. Originally, pieces of mica were used as the mirrors, but later people started using thin blown glass pieces, hence the name, which in Hindi means little glass. Until recently they were all irregular, made by hand, and used mercury. Nowadays one can also find them machine-made and regularly shaped. It's usually found in combination with other types of stitches like cross-stitch, buttonhole stitch and satin stitch. Nowadays not only by hand but also by machine. Mirrorwork is very popular for cushion covers and bed covers, purses and decorative hangings, as well as in decorative borders in women's salwar kameez and sari. There are various types of chikan work: type chi, bakia, funda, murray, jali, hathkati, pekni, ghas patti, and chana patti. Toda embroidery. The Toda embroidery has its origins in Tamil Nadu. The Nilgiri hills, inhabited by the Toda community, have their own style called Pagua, means flower. This embroidery, like kantha, is practiced by women. The embroidery adorns the shawls. The shawl, called puthkuli, has red and black bands between which the embroidery is done. As Todas worship the buffaloes, buffalo becomes an important motif in the Toda embroidery. Among Madhvikant Pagua is Advin Paguti and others. Stylized sun, moon, stars and the eye of the peacock feathers are used in Toda embroidery. Zadozi Azaria Kalabatu. The most opulent form of Indian embroidery is the zari and the zadozi, known since the late 16th century, brought in India by the mighty Mughals. The word zadozi comes from the two Persian words zar equals gold and dozi equals embroidery. This form uses metallic thread. Once real gold and silver thread was used on silk, brocade and velvet fabric. Metal ingots were melted and pressed through perforated steel sheets to convert into wires, which then were hammered to the required thinness. Plain wire is called badla, and when wound round a thread, it is called kasif. Smaller spangles are called sitara, and tiny dots made of badla are called mukais or mukesh. Zadozi is either a synonym or a more elaborate version of zari, where the gold or silver embroidery is embellished with pearls and precious stones. Gota and Kanari, making this art only affordable by rich people. Nowadays Sardosi thread has a plastic core and a golden-colored outside. The thread consists of coiled metal wires placed on the right side of the fabric and couched with a thinner thread.